All right, so we started this tutorial with two scenarios. The first one was about a meeting, and we structured we changed the format of the data, and then we put that in a format that would be easy for us to do analysis. And we actually ended up running that analysis that period, where we found out how many times the meeting held, how many times each of those states attended, and then we got the percentages. And then we were able to sort in a descending order. So we saw those that scored above 80%, is it 80 or 70%, who will be given the COH, Certificate of Honor, and then the other one, Certificate of Presence. So that is the analysis in its simplest form. So the scenario 2 is actually when we are going to be delving into deeper analysis with the Excel. And we saw the level we went when we were structuring the data, changing the format, and then putting them in a structured fashion. And we also had different tables for each state. We unpivoted it and then made them, created queries for the 3 states. And finally, we merged them. So tonight, we'll be looking at the merged, that's the combined queries, where we have all the 3 states in one table. You know, after we merged the queries, we now loaded that to a table. And so we are going to use that table to introduce PivotTable. I want to tell us that PivotTable is a very powerful data analysis tool that is in Excel. And not only Excel, but in most analytical tools. And time would definitely fail us if we attempt to go into all that PivotTable does. In the time past, we had to conduct training on PivotTable alone, and that was for more than 4 weekends. Okay, and certainly there's no way we'll be able to exhaust the components of a feature, and how much more PivotTable. So tonight, we are going to see the periphery of PivotTable, how to create a PivotTable from the beginning, right from the scratch, and then what it can help us to do. We'll try and see, based on the scenario that we are studying, we'll see how many functions. In our training, we enumerated about 9, is it either 7 or 9 different uses of a PivotTable. So but let's see how much of that we can cover tonight. And then we are going to allow each person to work on the state using what we have demonstrated with the combined queries. Then you can use the state queries, okay, to now practice. And then we'll now come back and get feedback from each of us. Okay, so that's how we are going to run tonight's session. So this is 5 minutes past 8, and we are going to start looking at that table that we created. However, at the back of our mind, we are given a task to look into the data and see what we can recommend. What would be our recommendation to the management? Because they don't know what's happening. So it is our duty to X-ray the data and then profile solutions. So the way we are going to be doing is we are going to be asking questions and then we'll receive answers so that we are just driven towards the path of critical reasoning, and then we'll be able to come up with concrete, those critical reasoning and questions will lead us to certain insights. And based on those insights, we'll be able to come up with some form of recommendations that we'll give to the management. Okay, so I'm going to, now let's go and see, let's see what we have in our clue. So the clue we provided, number one, was extract all data and align them under header columns, which we did. Set up a combined table of data, a data set for the 3 states. We have done that and we'll be looking at that. And don't forget that we are going to also look at the state level to see what happened for each state. And then based on the questions that we will be asking, we should be able to identify some form of insights in the data. Now, displaying the top performing staff can also help us identify who are those people pushing the company up. Okay, if an organization wants to support an individual, it is based on performance. Then, what are the characteristics? Do they have specific characteristics that we can look out for? Perhaps if the males are selling more, should we, as an organization, have a policy that will say, okay, let 50% or 60% of our workforce be made up of females, or 70% of our workforce be made up of males. So when you are making those decisions, they will ask you why. You say, based on data, what has happened in the past. Now, in terms of days of sales, are sales made more during the weekend or towards the weekend? Why would that be, if possible? Those days that sales happened favorably, were there activities in town, or what can we attribute the different sales to? Okay, so these are some of the things that we are going to be looking at. So now let me pull up our, this is the data that we are going to be working on. And we have how many records altogether? 80 records. Okay, we have 80 records. So now we are going to insert a pivot table, because pivot table is what helps us to run comprehensive analysis of data in Excel. There are other things you can use depending on the extent of analysis you want to run, but pivot table is great, and we are going to look at some of them. So for pivot table, if you look at the top here, this ribbon, you see insert here. I don't know the version that you may have, but from 2013, I think they are all embedded here. Okay, so you click here. Yours might just come over here and you see table, pivot table, recommended pivot table, tables. Mine used to be there, but I don't know what happened. Maybe during updates, they have put them here together. So when I open this now, I see this. Now, if this table that we are looking at now, if it were not an official Excel table, when I come to insert here, table here, this one will not be grayed out. It will be active for me to select. But because this is a table, so it's grayed out. So right now we want to click this. So I click this. The first thing that comes up is for you to select your range. Now, you will see that under the range here is a name of a table. Those of you that followed us when we created this table, we created it from the query, and then we loaded it to table. This was the name, South-South query. And so the reference is A to E. That means the entire column from A to E. So we are good to go with that. And like I will always say, paste it on a new worksheet. This is by default what is selected. I am going with it. If I was to do something else, I could click here to paste it on the existing worksheet. So if this is the option that we are going to choose, then we must define the location. So we can come here and define. And once we click OK, this pops up. Okay, so I'm going ahead to delete this. And then I'm going to create another one. Now, rather than going through this option here to select, to click Insert, come over here, and then click this one. Remember, this was the route that we went to. I'm going to use a shortcut. So like I always say, in Excel, there are several ways to a thing. And so it depends on which one that is most convenient for you. So, but I'm going to give us I think this works also for all Microsoft Office application. Now I can't be too sure, but we will try that. Maybe you when you get home, try it on PowerPoint, try it on Microsoft Word, Access, and other Microsoft Office application. So first, let me type them here. I'm going to hit Alt and V. So this, I'm going to hit them in succession so that we'll see what happens when we hit each key. So right now, I'm going to hit Alt. Right now, on my ribbon, codes have been assigned to each of them. So the next thing I say is N. So you see that these are all assigned codes, and insert is N. So I'm going ahead to hit N. Hitting N, it opens the insert. Then, okay, like I told you, mine wasn't like this before. The table, the pivot table was separate. So right now that they have been embedded in this table, I think I now have a ZB. So let me hit ZB. And then this is my V, which was what I indicated here. So I'm going to head to hit V. Okay, there are even more. So T, because I'm going to get it from table. All right, so now the reason why this is not selecting the table is because my cursor was outside this table. So if I like, I can just click here. Let's click the entire. Okay. So this is my table now. I've selected it. Let's go down. Yes, I've selected the entire table. And let's put it on a fresh sheet. So here we are. So here I will pause and find out if there is any confusion, and then give us just 1 minute to do this. Insert the pivot table on a new sheet. So our time starts now. All right, so I'm glad to hear that a lot of us are already familiar with this. So we are going to look at the state level. Let's look at the state. So we have 3 states. They have come here. Galaxy A80, please, may we know your name? Galaxy A80, your hand is up. May we know your name, please? Okay, so let's proceed. Okay, so we have, this is our row. So whatever that is text field and you click it, it comes straight under here. So now let's see how many times did each state report. So these are some of the things that we are going to be just running around. So let's see state count. Let's see how many times states reported. So Rivers reported 30 times. And then Bayelsa and Akwa Ibom reported 25 times. Well, from our question, we know that each of these states, they had 5 staff, but Rivers had 6 staff, okay? And so for each of those 5 days, for the 5 staff, we have 25, 25, and then 30. Now, if we don't do this, sometimes we will get the values. Okay, now let's get the sales. Let's get the sales here. So we see that Rivers is scoring 42,812 naira. Now, we may not just literally say this performed higher because they have more number of staff. So that's why I brought this to just put this in perspective. And then, so this is how the state stand, okay? Now, we may decide now to look at individual states. Or let's see how did they perform on days. So let's put date down here because of the way it is arranged. So Akwa Ibom, these are the different dates that they have. Of course, we know that 7th was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So these are their respective sales for the days. Okay, if we are not interested in this, we can remove this, just be exploring. Now let's see the performance of each of the staff. So now let's bring the staff down here. So in PivotTable, depending on your focus, you may decide to look at the states and the staff under them. So this is the number of sales. This was reported 5 times. For all the 5, this was the total sales. Now, for Akwa Ibom, this is the total. We may now decide to say, what is the percentage contribution of Helen to this total? Okay, so we can decide to create another sales there. We can decide to create another sales there. Didn't go. Let me because it's sales. Okay, so we have, no, I'm supposed to have, I wanted to have that one. Let me do this. I want to have this down. Okay. So assuming here, I decided to show the values of the total for that column. What is the percentage of column total? So the entire grand total of 87,000 plus, these are the state contribution. Akwa Ibom contributed 26%, Bayelsa contributed 24%, Rivers contributed 48%. So with this, you will be able, you are making your report. These are not the things you are calculating manually, but you are using PivotTable to run this for you. Now, if we want to look at the staff state by state, we may decide now to carry the state and put under filter here. So these are all the staff in the 3 states. So we can decide now to say we want to look each staff state by state. So right now, this is Akwa Ibom State. And so these are the respective contribution for each of these staff. You see that I apply this once, and then it's happening across any selection that I am making. Right now, we are looking at Akwa Ibom State. Let's look at Bayelsa State, just Bayelsa alone. It happens like this. We can also decide to look at Rivers, state by state. Now, you will notice that for me to view any of these states, I had to go in here to select. But when you are running this on dashboard, it's best to use slicers. So I'm going to introduce slicers here so that it will make it easy for me to filter the state, if it is state that I want to filter. So I will come under my, so this slicer is going to give you the options to choose out of all the headers in our original table. You see that the original table, we had state, staff, sex, date, and sales. Now let's just go for state. Okay, this. So with this now, if I put this on the dashboard that I have created, maybe I have inserted a pivot chart here. So now let's insert a pivot chart. Even though that we haven't gone, we are not yet in visualization, but I want to let us see how this works once you use your slicers. So I'm going here to include my pivot chart. If this is what I want, okay, let's go with this. It's a simple one. So if you are making your presentation, this, you can actually put this to cover here. And then you are clicking this. And as you are clicking, it's changing. You speak to this chart. When you are done, you click for state. You click another state, and then it displays. So for each of these that you are clicking, this is also appearing here. Okay, so I'm just giving us the different things that we can use PivotTable to showcase when we are running analysis. Okay, so one of the things that we use PivotTable for is to summarize. So the summary is that there is total sales of this person contributing this contributing this. Now, if assuming there is another level of calculation that we want to run, PivotTable has these field items and sets for your calculated field. And once you calculate it, the name that you have given will appear here, and then the values will appear here. Right now, we don't have any calculation that we are going to run, but it's just for us to know that those things are there. And again, we can look at our, so let me delete this one, and then let's remove these ones. Let's remove count of states. Now, for all these these 3 states and 16 staff, I think all of them are 16, 5, 5, and 6. Now I want to see how they appear on dates. So remember that this is how we went. So it's easier for us to come back like this. If we had applied PivotTable on this, remember the first time we did, this was how the table was laid out, where we have the dates across, then the staff this way. So this can also give us a different view. If we want, we can pivot it, carry staff to this point, carry date to this point. So if our focus is to look at how much did you make in a day and who are responsible, you can arrange it like this. If you are interested in how much did each person do, so your focus now is on the staff, so you turn it the other way, and then it gives you the values across like this. Although you can still see Chris values this way, Davis value this way, Albert values this way. Okay, so let's look at this. What do we think will be our focus? One of the things that we'll be focusing on is for each state, or let's look, who is the overall highest salesperson here? Okay, so let's now remove this, bring this one back here. Then we can come here and we can filter values. Let's filter the values here. We are looking at, since there are 16 of them, can we look at the top, let's say top 5 by sales? So we click this. So the highest is Debbie, followed by Grace, followed by Howard. How come it's only ladies that are selling high? So one thing that we have noticed now is that ladies are selling higher than the male. We'll ask why. Why is this happening? Is there anything that we need to look out for? Okay, so asking those critical questions can help us more. Now, are there days that favor sales? Let's see what we can do with our dates like this. Is the sale increasing or reducing as we delve into weekend? Let's see this. So this, another thing that can help us now is, let's see if we can insert a pivot chart, and then let's use line. Let's use line chart. And then let's get back our slicer, but now we are looking at staff. So all the staff are here. So if we choose Albert, okay, so now because of the way this thing is, let's turn this around. Let's see if we turn this. Let's see what we can get. These are different options that you can choose so that you see your trend. So for each of them, these are the various line charts. Now let's change this series chart. Let's use the marker, the line chart with markers. Let's use this one. So for Albert, okay, you mean the slicer, right? Okay, so the slicer is when you click your pivot table, activate this, because if I click outside, it's off. So I need to bring it up. And then I come to, I click this and I come to this point now. These are my filters. So there are two key filters. The timeline, which filters dates. And then this one filters any other header. Then you can connect this. When you have different charts and different pivot tables, you can connect them so that whatever you are displaying here, whatever that is related in the other pivot chart, they are connected and displayed at the same time. Okay, so that's how that happens. Okay, so let me just delete this. Let's start it again. So I'm going to insert. So at the beginning, let me just select this. Okay, so for Albert, for Chris, for Debbie, so this is the way, you see this one goes up like this, comes down here, this is Debbie, and then it flattens somewhere here. What about Albert? Albert started at somewhere less than 600, goes high up to 1,000, it peaks at 1,000, comes down again and settles somewhere around over 800. Okay, so with this, you are able to visualize each person's trend, and you'll be able to come up with insights. You know, things like this, depending on your critical reasoning skills, you can come up with different things you have found out based on the questions you ask. So there is no right or wrong answer, but you as the recipient, assuming you are the management, and then two persons come, analyze this, and then give you their views. Then depending on how they are able to enrich their recommendations, you'll be able to tell whose this thing is more distinct to you. Okay, so I want to pause here and then ask if there are questions